Hi, and welcome to this presentation on the essential elements of RCA, getting back to the basics. My name is Bob Latino, and I will be your host for the next few moments, so thank you for your time. Let's get started. There's no doubt that there's confusion in the marketplace about this thing called root cause analysis because there are so many things that are put underneath the umbrella as intended to mean the same thing. We hear of brainstorming. We hear of the technique of the 5 whys, the fishbone or Ishikawa diagram, or the logic trees or their equivalents, sometimes called Y trees, sometimes called Y staircases, whatever the case may be. Aren't they all forms of RCA? We are led to believe that, but when it comes down to the practicality and the technical aspects of each of these techniques, are they really forms of RCA? Let's explore. Root cause analysis, or RCA, has really been such a diluted term in the marketplace now that it's simply a noun. Because no matter who you go to and talk to about whether they do RCA or not, they will all say that they do. And whatever form that they're using is what they will go ahead and use now. Because there is no universally accepted definition of root cause analysis, not even amongst the provider, and we are guilty of that as well because we are a provider and we must have our own definition because one universally accepted one does not exist. But all of the different brands on the market that I've listed off to the right are simply adjectives describing the process or a process of root cause analysis. Are they all the same? I can tell you as a provider ourselves that anyone on here will be able to give you names of people that have used their specific process successfully. And people who stick to the rules and apply the various principles as they were designed typically will have some levels of success. However, it's when we take the shortcuts on any techniques that we start to have the problems in giving the specific brands or techniques a bad name when they simply weren't applied properly. But do they all have the capability of getting down to the identifying the root causes of a particular event as opposed to the superficial causes? Let's wipe away all of the associations of nouns and adjectives and different techniques and methodologies on the market, and let's get down into basic investigative methodology. The task of doing root cause analysis is nothing more than the same role as a detective at a police station. The investigative process is the exact same, it's just that the natures of the events that we're looking at are different. What are the essential elements of a root cause analysis? I'm not talking about something that doesn't rise to the level of root cause, but something that requires the breadth and depth of a detailed, disciplined, drilled down investigation. One of the essential elements has to be that we're identifying the real problem. I would say about 80% of the time that we are called in to assist in an investigation, the problem that's presented to us is not really the problem at hand. And those of you listening to this particular presentation now that have done investigations in the past, I am sure you have a similar experience where the things that people believe to be the problems are simply not the problems. They are manifestations of it, possibly, but they are not the real problem at hand. Second essential element: identification of the cause and effect relationships that combined to cause the undesirable outcome. This means that we're interested in finding the linkages of cause and effect that led to a particular type of event. We're all enamored with the shows like CSI, which show these forensic crime labs, and what they're doing is creating hypotheses in the form of flashbacks, and then they're using the evidence to back up whether these cause and effect relationships actually occurred or not. This is quite different than, for instance, in a brainstorming session where someone comes up with a "I think that this might have happened" type of idea, and they plummet it into a category and say, well, I think that we had a communication problem and we'll settle it by that and we'll implement some solutions. That's not understanding the cause and effect relationships that led up to an undesirable outcome. Basically, what we want to do is have the illusion or the luxury of having a videotape of an incident as if it had happened and being able in our minds to roll it out backwards frame by frame. That's what understanding cause and effect is about. Essential element number 3, disciplined data collection and preservation of evidence to support cause and effect relationships. I can tell you that if you're not collecting evidence to support your hypotheses, you're not doing root cause analysis. And hearsay, using hearsay and allowing it to fly as fact is not disciplined data collection. Imagine if you were a detective and you're going to a crime scene that had already been cleaned up. How much of a case are you going to have going to court with having simply hearsay as your basis of evidence? Okay, our next essential element, identification of all the physical, human, and latent root causes associated with the undesirable outcome. This means that we're not only interested in the forensic side or the physical side of the failure, but we're more interested in understanding why people made bad decisions. They may be judgment calls, it may be flawed data, whatever the case may be. We are interested in not necessarily who made a bad decision, but why they thought it was the right decision at the time that they made it. This will delve us into our system deficiencies in dealing with understanding the cause and effect relationships from the systems aspects, our policies, our procedures, our practices. Our next essential element, the development of corrective actions and countermeasures to prevent the same and similar problems in the future. Oftentimes we see analyses that fall off a cliff right here. We come up, we do a great analysis, we have great recommendations, and then they fall upon deaf ears, or worse yet, they are accepted by management, they are approved, and then they're never implemented. That can pose a problem to a person who's done a root cause analysis and they've put a lot of effort, a lot of sweat equity into it, and then nothing ever happens. All right, lastly, effective communication to others in the organization of the lessons learned from their RCAs. One of the primary benefits you will get from doing root cause analysis is that others will learn from the decision-making processes in the past that have led to undesirable outcomes. By creating an awareness and education, we can filter that to the rest of the organization so that people in similar circumstances will not make the same types of decisions. When we reference the difference between root cause analysis versus shallow cause analysis, I'll explore in brevity the 4 techniques that we talked about earlier. You know, brainstorming, we've all been involved in brainstorming in our careers, and it's where very bright people get around the table, and it's almost like an episode of CSI. We seem to solve the failure within an hour. We don't have much evidence, but we have a bunch of smart people in the room. We throw out disconnected ideas that seem very logical at the time, so therefore we spend most of our time on solutions as opposed to analyzing real causes. Now, problem solving is where we're going to actually use some type of structured tool, whether it's the 5 whys or whether it's a fishbone, and then we're going to take this team that's been doing the brainstorming and we're going to go ahead and brainstorm within a structured tool some ideas within categories that we think might have happened. For instance, with the fishbone diagram, we may pick the 4 M's where we're going to look at management, or we're going to look at materials, whatever the case may be. We're going to say underneath that category, we think that this likely happened. Okay, now let's look at troubleshooting. Troubleshooting is often done by an individual. The goal typically of troubleshooting is to get back online as fast as we can, as opposed to understanding why something happened. Our clutch people, the people that were born with their wrenches, are typically the people that are the best troubleshooters. And they get accolades because something that used to take 4 hours to fix now only takes 1 hour to fix because this person is so adept at it. A really progressive management would be asking, why is this guy getting so much practice? As opposed to root cause analysis, which for lack of a universally accepted definition, I will use the establishing of logically complete, evidence-based, tightly coupled chains of factors from the least acceptable consequences to the deepest significant underlying causes. And this was developed jointly on one of the root cause forums that I participate on. And it seems to fit the model of what we espouse. Okay, so why do we have a tendency to go towards one technique versus another? On our x-axis here, we're looking at time. And the only point I want to make with this chart is that whenever we are expensing evidence to make an analysis go quicker, then we are going to shortcut ourselves on the accuracy of that analysis because of the lack of evidence. So why is troubleshooting attractive to a lot of managements? Because it doesn't take a lot of time. We can get an answer, and I use that lightly, an answer, not necessarily the right answer, but we do it quickly and then we appease certain people. Brainstorming takes a little bit more time because it involves a team. But because of the lack of need to collect evidence to back up what we say, it doesn't take much more time. Problem solving, because we're using a disciplined tool with a team, takes a little bit more time, and we may have more of a tendency to get evidence. But certainly, root cause analysis, true investigation, the time of conducting this analysis is based on our ability to get the evidence. And the evidence collection is what takes the time, not simply putting post-its on a wall and coming up with logic that seems logical. When you add in software to aid in this type of investigation, it's not a panacea. It's not going to give you all the answers. All software is it's an efficiency tool. Software helps organize the analysis, all of the data that you have to collect, all of your interviews, all of your logic, and it just makes it much more efficient to document and communicate. This table right here is just contrasting the brainstorming versus the problem solving and troubleshooting in RCA. And as you will see on the bottom, if you're doing true RCA, they will apply to chronic or sporadic events. They will always require rigid data collection. It will require a team that's an unbiased team with varied backgrounds. It will require formal cause and effect process, which means that we are going to find those linkages that led up to it, just like having the videotape and rolling it backwards. It will be an evidence-based validation process in these hypotheses, that we will back up what we say, and we will drill down until we understand the basis of the poor decision making. When we have all of those elements, we will be doing root cause analysis. The basis of a logic tree is simply what I've been talking about. It's going to explore and drill for cause and effect relationships. The top box, as we refer to it, is going to be the consequences of the event. It's going to be the last effect in the chain. It's going to be why we care. But most importantly, it's going to be a fact. When we look at what led to this undesirable outcome, we are going to identify the modes which triggered the consequences. These also are going to be factual. Now, at the mode level, we may not understand why they're occurring, but that's where we become hypothetical and we start to ask the question, how could that mode have occurred, resulting in that consequence? We are going to come up with a series of hypotheses. We're going to use our evidence collection to validate whether these hypotheses occurred or not, and we will reiterate that questioning process. In the drill down process, we will identify physical, human, and then latent root causes in that series. Physical root causes are the consequences of poor decision making, which are the human roots. Latent root causes are the basis of a bad decision. They are the reasons that people thought it was the right thing to do. So when we're looking at a logic tree as compared to a 5 whys or a fishbone, and breaking it down or dissecting it as to the difference between root cause and shallow cause, if we're merely looking at manifestations of a failure or superficial causes at the mode level, that's really no different than trial and error or troubleshooting. We're seeing if it works, and if it works, fine. If not, we'll try something else. When we get down into brainstorming and problem solving, we're drilling down in some type of logical manner, but we're almost always satisfied with some physical level. We find a part or a component that's failed, and then we go ahead and we replace it. We drill deeper, and sometimes, and it is very prevalent, unfortunately, even today, where we seem to need to have a head to roll in order for people to be appeased that the problem's been solved. If we stop at poor decision making, then that's simply witch hunting. And you may be successful once, but after that, not many people are going to help you when they know you've used this tool as a harpoon. When we are doing real root cause analysis, we will be wanting and requiring that we get past the witch hunting aspects and look at well-intentioned people who simply made a bad decision at the wrong time. We have to understand why they thought it was the right decision at the time that they made it. When we've progressed that far in our forward thinking and in our open environment, then we will have been doing real root cause analysis and not simply some type of analysis to appease what people want to hear. So our exam at the end of this building blocks or the basics of root cause analysis, given what we've said now and described all the different processes, does your RCA process meet the essentials of an RCA methodology? I cannot answer that for you. You will have to internalize that and contrast it against whether it's meeting the criteria that we've discussed. I do appreciate your time. I know that this is a difficult venture if you're just getting into root cause, as opposed to being a veteran who has to get other people on board to understand why they believe the things that they do. For more information on this topic and other reliability topics, please visit us at our new website, www.reliability.com, or give us a ring at 804-458-0645, and I'm always open for emails if I can help give you any supporting documentation to help your cause. And I can be emailed at blatino@reliability.com. I appreciate your time and good luck with your individual efforts.